Hello, good morning. Today, let us continue our first chapter history what, where, how, and when. In our previous part, we had already studied what is the importance of history and what can we know about the past, where did people live, and how people started to develop cities and towns. And today let us continue why did people travel. As we know, in ancient times, the rulers were very powerful and set up a large kingdom, very large kingdom. And throughout, people travel from one part of the subcontinent to another. The hills and the high mountains, including the Himalayas, deserts, rivers, and seas, make journeys very dangerous at a time, but never impossible. So men and women move in search of livelihood, as also to escape from natural disasters like flood, drought. Sometimes men marches in armies conquering another land. Besides, merchants travel with caravans or ships carrying valuable goods from place to place, and religious teachers walk from village to village, town to town, stopping to offer advice and instruction on the way. Finally, some people perhaps travel driven by spirit of adventures, wanting to discover new and exciting places. All this lead to the sharing of ideas between peoples. This movement of people enrich our cultural traditions. Moreover, this movement share new ways of carving stones, composing music, and even cooking foods and other several hundreds of years to the peoples. And now let us move on to the next slide. From the second slide, we see how was the name India derived. Our country is called India and Bharat. Bharat was used by the people of North India in the Sanskrit composition Rig Veda. And if we look back history, the Iranian and the Greeks who came through the northwest about 2500 years ago were very familiar with the Indus, call it the Hindus or the Indus, and the land to the east or the river was called India. And the word India come from Indus, trace its root from the river Indus, which is called Sindhu in Sanskrit. The land to the east of Indus river was called India. And the name Bharata was used for a group of people who live in the northwest and who are mentioned in the Rig Veda. The earliest composition in Sanskrit dated back to about 3500 years ago. Later it was used for the country. How do we know about the past? The next. So as we see from this, we can know about the past, or there are several ways of finding out about the past. One is to study the sources which tells us about the past is through the study of archaeology, and another way is literary. So what is archaeology? Archaeology is the study of human history and prehistory through the excavation of sites and the analysis of physical remains. And we can see like the archaeologists used to study the remains of building made of stones and bricks, paintings, sculptures, and they also explore and excavate, dig under the surface of that to find tools, weapon, pot, pan, ornaments, coins, etc. In order to study the human history. And then archaeologists use sources like monument, artifacts, inscription, and coins also. Then literary. Through the study of literary, there is handwritten or any other written records of the past is known as literary source. Literary source include two types of literature: religious literatures and secular literature. That means some of the books which is written by scholars, they are called so secular literatures. And religious literatures are the books which is written by a prophet, like written by this religious teachers. Then for example like Bibles. Then we can see like we can study from those religious book. And then manuscript, books that were written long ago. Gold manuscripts were usually written on palm leaf. This book deals with religious belief and practices, the life of the king, medicine, science. The Prakrit was the language which was commonly used by ordinary people at that time. And what is inscription? Inscription were written on hard surfaces as stone or metal object which were made on hard enduring substances. And the last but not the least, who studies sources of history? There were two groups of people who study history. One was called archaeologists and the other group was called historian. Archaeologists study remains of buildings made of stone, bricks, paintings, sculptures, and the other group called historians were the people who study the past and use information found in inscription, seal, and scribe. So this is the end of our chapter. So let us end our discussion. Have a